Good morning, boys and girls. This is lesson number 3, homework. We are on page 15, so make sure you are turning to page 15. For problem number 1, they ask you to write the following in exponential form. As we talked about previously, exponential form means that you are multiplying your numbers to the power of 10. Okay, so right here we have 1,000. I want to make sure that I am multiplying 10 times 10 times 10 in order to get 1,000, right? So how many 10s do you see? 1, 2, 3. So it's 10 to the power of 3. Now I'm going to do the next problem, 10 times 10. How many 10s do you see in this case? We have 2 10s. So it's 10 to the power of 2. Okay? Now, what is 10 to the power of 2? If you were to multiply 10 times 10, you would get 100, right? The next problem, we have problem C. It says 100,000. That means that I am multiplying 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. How did I know that? So I'm looking at these zeros here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 10s. So that means that I have 5 10s that I am multiplying. You'll see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means that this is 10 to the power of 5. Now, the next equation I have here is 100 times 10. This one is a little more tricky, but it means that you're multiplying 10 times 10 times 10. How do I know that? There are 1, 2, 3 zeros. So it is 10 to the power of 3. Okay? Now I'm going to try the next one. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 10s. So that is 10 to the power of 6. 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 is going to give me 1 million. Okay? Now, the next problem I have here says 10,000 times 10. I'm going to count the zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 of them. So that means it's 10 to the power of 5. When I multiply 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, I am going to get my answer of 100,000. Okay? Now, I'm going to move on to problem number 2. Let me zoom in a little bit more for you guys. For problem number 2, it says, write the following in standard form. Okay? So standard form, they give an example for you to see right here. 4 times 10 to the power of 2 is equal to 400. Okay? So I need to make sure that I am writing in standard form. That means I solve the equation. So I'm multiplying. Right here, I have 4 times 10 times 10 times 10. Okay? Now, an easy way to solve for this is to write this right here. So I'm going to multiply 4 times 1. Okay? 4 times 1 is equal to 4. And then I'm going to add my zeros. I have 1, 2, 3 zeros. So I'm going to add 1, 2, 3 zeros. So my answer, 4 times 10 to the power of 3 is equal to 4,000. Okay, now I'm going to try the next problem. We have 64 times 10 to the power of 4. Same thing. I'm first going to multiply 64 times 1. 64 times 1 is going to give you 64. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. Okay? Now, for my next equation, problem C, I have 5,300 divided by 10 to the power of 2. So this is division. When you divide, it is very similar to this bar right here. This bar is considered a division bar. So this says 5,300 divided by 10 times 10 because there are 2 10s. So I did that, and then I repeated this right here. 5,300, I brought it right over, and then I multiplied 10 times 10. I know that 10 times 10 is equal to 100. Now, what I cross off at the top is what I'm going to cross off on the bottom. If there is 0 at the top, I can also cross off on the bottom. If there is 0 at the top, I can cross off at the bottom. Now what this reads is 53 divided by 1. And 53 divided by 1 is going to give you 53 as your final answer. I'm going to highlight my answers so you guys can kind of see a little bit better because I know it's very hard to see right there. Okay, now my next problem, I have 5,300,000 divided by 10 to the power of 3. So I wrote 5,300,000 and then I wrote my division bar. This little fraction bar is considered a division bar in case you didn't know that. So I have 10 to the power of 3. So I wrote 10 times 10 times 10 because this tells me how many times I need to multiply times 10, 3 times. So over here, I multiplied 10 times 10 times 10, which is going to give me 1,000. How do I know that? I put down my 1, and then I added my zeros. So 1, 2, 3 zeros. So I put all my 3 zeros over there. Now, I can cross off what I have on the top and bottom, and the reason being is, just like the numbers up here, you are doing the opposite. So I can cross off these zeros as long as there is a 0 at the top. So my final answer that I have left is 5,300 divided by 1. 5,300 divided by 1. Any number over itself is going to equal to the number. So my answer is 5,300. Okay, now for problem E, I have 6 and 72 thousandths. So at this point, I'm going to use my place value chart. When I start having decimals, it's a lot trickier to divide and multiply exponents. So I'm going to use a place value chart, and I'm going to write it down. Okay, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to move this a little higher so that you guys can see my place value chart. So the first number I have here is 6,000. Oh, not 6,000. Sorry, 6.072 or 6 and 72 thousandths. Okay, so I put my number there, and then it says times 10 to the power of 3. Remember, 10 to the power of 3 means that I need to move my number over 3 times, and I'm multiplying. So that means that I need to move it over 3 times to the left because I'm multiplying times 10. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. So my 6 goes right here. My next number is 0, and then I have 7, and then I have 2. Okay? So my new answer, or my answer, is going to be 6,072. Okay? Now I'm going to move on to problem F. I'm going to use my place value chart again because I really like using my place value chart. And it's the perfect way to use it. And I wrote right here for you guys. Use place value chart so you remember. So the next number right here is 60 and 72 hundredths, okay? And this one tells me that I'm multiplying times 10 to the power 4. That means I am going to increase my number. So I move to my left, and I am going to move over 4 times because it says 10 to the power 4. So I'm going to move over 1, 2, 3, 4. And my 6, same thing with the 0, I move over 4 times. 7, I move over 4 times. And my 2, I move over 4 times. Look, I have a blank in my tens in ones place. When I see that blank in my tens in ones place, I'm going to put zeros until I reach the decimal. The reason being is if you keep it like this, then your answer is not going to be 607,200. It's going to end up looking like 672,000, which is incorrect. So you need to make sure that you're adding your zeros. I have 607,200. Okay? Now, I'm going to move on to the next problem. I have problem G. For problem G, it says right there that I have 948, okay? And this time I am dividing. So I'm going to first write in 948, and I'm dividing by 10 to the power of 3. That means that I'm going to move my numbers 3 times to the right this time because my numbers are decreasing or getting smaller. Because I'm dividing, my number is going to get smaller, not larger. So 1, 2, 3. That's where my 9 is, and the rest of my numbers follow. This is where my decimal is, okay? So I'm going to write 0 and 948 thousandths. The reason why I put the 0 is on test questions or when you're answering questions for state testing, they do add the 0, and you need to make sure you always put your decimal. If you don't put your decimal, it's going to be mistaken as 948, which is incorrect, okay? Okay, now for problem 3. For problem 3, they ask you to complete the patterns. So I need to make sure that I'm looking at the pattern they have here. And to do that, I'm looking at these two numbers right here. That's how I would figure out the pattern. I went from 0 and 2 hundredths to 0 and 2 tenths, okay? I'm going to write both of those numbers down so you can see it very clearly. I went from 0 and 0 2 hundredths, and the other one is 0.2, okay? Now, if you notice, the 2 moved over one time. And remember, when we move over once, that means that you are multiplying times 10. Because your number is going this way, that means you're multiplying. Your number is getting larger. Even if you're in the decimal area, your number is getting larger. So I'm multiplying times. And if I move once, that means that I only have 1 0. So I'm multiplying times 10. So that's what I'm going to do for the rest of the numbers. I'm going to multiply times 10 again. Okay? So I can figure out where the 2 goes next. The 2 is going to be right here. That was very sloppy, so I'm going to move it over like that. So next I get 2. So I'm going to write 2. And look, next you get 20. And then what do you think happens next? Next you're going to get 200. And the last one is going to be 2,000. I'm going to show you the next problem. The next problem I have is a very large number. I have 3